In the summer of last year, the band Bring Me the Horizon used my remix of their song Shadow Moses to promote their tour. It's probably the coolest thing that's happened to my music to date. I was really excited when one of my viewers brought it to my attention. I wanted to walk you through how I made the track in Ableton, what tools I used to separate the vocal stems, and how I got my heavy drum and bass, synth, and drum sounds. So I'm gonna start with the vocal. So I used an AI stem separating tool called LaLa.ai. This tool has been around for a very long time. It was one of the earliest stem separators that I was aware of. If we listen through just the very beginning soloed out,
Can you tell from the look in our eyes?
so you can hear I chopped up the choir vocal part in the beginning of the song. You can still hear some artifacts and some parts that are kind of bleeding over, but when I start adding all of the other elements, they're not really as noticeable. Some of them kind of sound synthetic and cool, so they kind of add to the vibe of the track. Now in this section, in this build up, I use a reverb that is 100% wet for just this section, and it's like really large size and decay. You can hear kind of just adds almost like a riser, like a vocal riser, and it's just like chopped and cross-faded to sound like one, like a synth pad. All right, moving on to drums. So for this track, I mainly set up my drums on one single drum rack, which I don't really do as much anymore. Usually I'll either have one drum rack for kick and snare, and then another drum rack for like hi-hats and perks and things like that. On this one, everything is just on one drum rack, and then side chaining and things like that, I'm just taking from individual samples in the drum rack. So I have this drum loop, this full drum loop from Ghost Syndicate. I'm using in gate mode so that it plays the entirety of the drum loop. It's already warped to the BPM of the track, so you can hear in this section it just plays it. And it's a really nice crispy drum loop. It's transposed up 3 semitones, so it's a little bit brighter, a little bit more high-end material. I also have a couple swishy, sound designy, ear candy elements in this drum rack, which you can kind of hear in the main drum loop, just kind of in between hi-hats. So there's also a few different like whip effects. Again, I don't really use these inside of drum racks anymore. I think I was still using the light version of Ableton when I made this remix, so I was really kind of cramming things into drum rack to minimize my track count. Now, of course, I have the sweet version of Ableton, so I would just put each of these in their own audio lane, like this riser effect, so that I can adjust it further and give it its own EQ and things like that. It makes it just a lot more manageable than diving into a drum rack. All of my other drum sounds are even lower on this drum rack. We have an impact effect, like an 808 bass droppy thing. All of my hi-hats. A lot of these, again, are from Ghost Syndicate or Cymatics. I really like their sounds. They're just really kind of simple, generic for, you know, techno and drum and bass. So this snare, I'm using an auto filter and the 3-channel EQ3 just for this section. In this part, the filter and the EQ get turned off. Other than that, I don't really add that much processing to the kicks. I add like a little bit of multiband compression with the multiband comp from Reaper, which, you know, is what I was most familiar with using, transitioning from Reaper to Ableton. But a really solid multiband compressor. I think setting up like the attack and release and stuff is even easier than Ableton's multiband, so I really like it. The snare just goes into a saturator, and then Waves 1176 emulation and the black version. I use this for snare drums all the time because it just has like a squishy, saturated vibe to it. I really love 1176s on snares. You can see as I go through here, so my 2 main hi-hat sounds are panned a little bit left and right. And some people do this with an auto pan. I tend to do it with like different hi-hat samples so that when it's going. All right, moving on to the neuro bass sounds. I pretty much have all of these in a group together. That way I can sidechain all of them as well as EQ them and clip them together. Now this group also includes the orchestral sounds and the stabs in the beginning of the song, but I'm mainly going to focus on the basses right now. So I'm using Serum. This was right before Serum 2 came out. I pretty much scrubbed through the wavetables until I found this Del Toy wavetable. It's in digital, as well as the basic shapes triangle wave. I'm doing classic FM from B. We look at the modulation. LFO1, which is this almost like shark fin LFO shape, is going to the warp, so that FM from B, and this is set as an envelope at a quarter note rate. This is also going to A's wavetable position, so you can see as it's playing, kind of shifting through that wavetable to get just kind of a granular texture as it plays through. It's also attached to this noise level. I just have just a basic noise pitched up pretty high, but just for like some crispy like top end as it goes through the LFO. The LFO is also making this detune as it goes through. So it just kind of opens up the stereo width as it plays through each note. Yeah, I'm just using this LFO to kind of trigger and sweep through a bunch of different effects. It's doing the same thing to the filter cutoff. It's sweeping the filter, which is like a comb filter to give it that zappy sound, the dry wet on a flanger to just add some more modulation, a little bit on a reverb just to add some like, I guess like density, like width to it, and then it kind of snaps shut, like it's gated to the LFO. And then I tend to do this a lot where you get like this lasery sound by moving different bands in an EQ with an LFO, which is pretty common for like respaces to have like a notch EQ kind of moving through the spectrum. Now all of this is layered up with a sub, and you can see there's a ton of automation going on. I used the sub, which is a sub plugin. I don't really use it that much anymore, but it sounds really good. It's got a lot of great presets. It's very easy to get like quick, good sub bass sounds. But yeah, it's got like a lot of effects on it. Whereas that respace really only has like a little bit of multiband and some saturation and just EQ to kind of balance it through the track. But if we listen to this sub bass, I can't hear shit with this thing. Why is it not? So this sub sound is pretty gnarly. I'm using the sub, which again, I don't really use a lot anymore. It's going through a lot of different effects. I'm actually gonna turn all these off so you can hear what it sounds like without these. So just this bass sound, it just sounds like an 808, no real like attack or anything. But it's going through a saturator. A little bit beefier. It's going through an effect rack with saturator and OTT in parallel. And this saturator is modulated, so drive for this guy is like being pushed up and down to change the sound. So if I turned just that saturator off, so it kind of like makes it fart out, which is essential to the sound. You got to have the fartiness. And then this erosion just adds some kind of top end noise. And this auto filter with an envelope essentially just gives it some movement as it attacks. And then another EQ3 just to kind of balance it as things change in the track. So that's pretty much how I attack filthy low sub synth sounds. I just like to distort things and like push things into filters and sweep those filters and change the amount of distortion going into something to just make it messed up. Like you need to just be stupid when it comes to like neuro basses. Don't overthink it. Just push things into other things until they sound broken. But with those two synth sounds together, it gives like this really sickly, chunky mid bass and then this like really nasally metallic on top of it, which I really love. All right, I'm gonna go into the elements at the beginning of the song, which are all of the like orchestral elements and stabs and things like that. So I use Contact. There's one Contact library that I really love called Free Orchestra, Project Sam Free Orchestra. It's a free Contact player patch, so even if you have the free version, you can use it. But it's just got like a lot of orchestral and cinematic strikes and stabs and things like that. I think I have this on pretty close to stock settings. There's a few different things layered in here. So there's like short string stabs, there's horn, and then impacts and strikes from percussion. And then some like march percussion kind of drums and like bowed cymbal hits. It just makes the intro cinematic, and then I layer it with this serum, almost like a bassy pad. It's like this like a bent triangle and a square wave. That's it, just in unison. A lot of reverb, delay. I used this a lot back in the day, and it's a good Pultec EQ emulation. It can do the push-pull thing that kind of tightens bass up, which I'm doing here, 150 hertz. This is what it sounds like without it. Over EQing everything back in the day. So I'm using these octave chords. That's just to match the chords that are going on in the main track. That's really the majority of the track. It's pretty straightforward as far as drum and bass goes. This one probably has the least amount of modulation of any drum and bass track I've done. The only thing that's getting modulated a lot is that sub bass drive pushing into the filter. Everything else is pretty much just like set and forget. But yeah, I was really stoked that Bring Me the Horizon used this on one of their reels. It wasn't brought to my attention until way later, until way after the fact. Big shout out to my friend Gabe for going back to that video and replying to all the comments telling everybody to go listen to my stuff, because people were asking Bring Me the Horizon like, oh, when are you gonna release this? Like, what is this remix? I think that would be cool if they did that. I've reached out to them. I haven't heard back yet, but we'll see. Maybe this video pops off. Maybe people get it in front of them. We can make something happen. Maybe get some like original stems and do it up big time. I think that would be really cool. But yeah, guys, if you want me to do more track breakdowns like this, or you want me to go more in depth with any sound design things, or just anything music production related, like my previous video, like video production, just let me know. I've got a few shows coming up in the future. I'll announce them pretty soon. We're still ironing out some details, but I can't wait to tell you guys about it. In the meantime, I want you to check out my newest version of my website, swampwampa.com. You can see my visual work as well as my existing tracks and remixes. Also, be sure to check me out on Instagram. That's where I'm most active as far as social media goes. And if you like this one, give me a like, give me a subscribe, share it with people if you think they'll think it's cool. Always trying to grow the herd. But yeah, peace out, guys.